Hey everyone, it's Matt from Carallel. Welcome back to another edition of our Caregiver Journey Webinar series, the September edition, September 28th. I can't believe September's almost gone, but today we're talking about understanding dementia from the perspective of the person living with it. So personally, really excited about this conversation, in large part because we're lucky to have Judy Cornish here joining us. Hey Judy, how are you?
Hey, hello Matt. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, cool. Thanks for being here. So Judy is an esteemed author. She's written books such as the Dementia Handbook and Dementia with Dignity. I believe I have those right. And is the creator of the Dawn Method. So Judy spends her days working with family caregivers, dementia caregivers across the country and world and helping them through this journey. So thanks so much for being here, Judy. Really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
All right. So we don't have, these are shorter sessions, so we're going to jump right in to the housekeeping, Judy. If you're joining one of these sessions for the first time, thank you. And just a quick snippet on Carallel. We're a caregiver support company. We get up every day to make caregiving easier, and we do it in two ways: with a caregiver support line staffed by a team of care advocates who provide personalized, confidential caregiving support for whatever challenge you might have on your plate. And we support or we complement that human support with My Care Desk by Carallel, which is a digital one-stop shop hub for everything related to your caregiving life. So if you're unsure whether or not you have access to Carallel, check with your health plan or your employer to see if you do, or you can send me an email after the session. Okay, we have that out of the way, Judy. The second and most important piece of housekeeping here is for the audience, and please share questions, perspectives, things that have worked for you, thoughts that you've had, whatever you want to share. Please do share it in the questions box here in the chat. As usual, we'll do our best to get to them live, but I will follow up after the session to make sure you get answers to whatever questions you might ask. So I think that is the housekeeping, Judy. And we've gotten in the habit here of starting with a poll to gauge the audience and get a sense for why they joined us today. And that's exactly the poll question that we have here. So would love to get a quick read on the room. And wow, this may be a first. Okay, we're at 100%. I'm currently caring for a loved one with dementia. Okay, so we're 78%. I'm currently caring for a loved one who's living with dementia. 24%. I'm not caring for somebody yet, but expect to be soon. And then 5 or 9% actually. I'm just curious. So I'll go ahead and close out the poll. We have over 80% of the vote in, as they say. So that's the lay of the land. About 2/3 of the group here today, Judy, are currently actively caring for a loved one who's living with dementia. A quarter are think they might be soon, and then a smidgen of the group are just curious for the future. So that's where we are. And we, as if you've been here on one of these sessions before, you know our focus is on the practical of whatever the topic is that we're discussing, and the same goes for today. So really, I'm just fascinated by what we're going to talk about, because it's this was one of the fundamental, pervasive, never left me type of questions when I was caring for my mom and my father-in-law, which was, how are they feeling? How is this for them, right? So I thought the way we'd structure the conversation, Judy, is talk about some of the common changes. Again, from the perspective of our loved one who's experiencing dementia. How's that sound?
That sounds great. Good idea. Yep.
Okay. I forgot one caveat before we jump in with the first sort of set of symptoms or changes that we see in our loved ones. Judy is joining us from the great state of Idaho today, and in the event that we have some technical difficulties, she may go off camera to make sure we keep audio quality up to snuff. So bear with us if we're having some difficulties. Okay. Now, Judy, first change that I'd love to talk about and get a sense from you as to what it's like for our loved one living with dementia is sort of the limitation and loss over time of sort of rational thinking skills, increased confusion, loss of the ability to reason, that sort of stuff. Can you give us a sense of what that's like for our loved one?
Yes. You know, I think you just gave me, normally that takes me about 7 hours to teach all of those topics. But you know, for me, if I'm the person, I'm your companion, I'm experiencing dementia, we go and we get a diagnosis, the neurologist will tell us that I'm going to be losing executive functioning. But for anyone who's not a neuroscientist, that's not going to mean a lot. So here's what's going on for me. 3 top frustrating losses, both for the person experiencing dementia and for their companions. Number 1, cause and effect. Most of us begin using cause and effect within hours of birth, and we use it unconsciously. We have no idea that we have that skill. And so when we begin to lose it to dementia, it surprises everybody, but it changes the rules of the relationship irrevocably. So if I'm losing my ability to see cause and effect, and you and I are standing in the living room and you say, hey, Mom, darling, we need to go to the grocery store. Grab your coat, let's put your winter coat on. We're standing in the living room and it's 70 degrees. It doesn't matter if you point to the window and it's clearly snowy outside. I won't be able to put 2 and 2 together and realize that I may be warm right now, but I'm going to be cold in the future the moment I step out the door. Best thing to do, know that that is a skill I'm losing, and don't expect me to be able to project myself into the future and see what's going to happen if I do X, Y, Z. So what I would do in that situation is I'd say, oh, Judy, don't worry, if you're not cold, do you mind if I take your coat? I might be cold. I'm going to wear mine, but I'm going to carry yours just in case I get cold. And then as soon as you take me outdoors, as soon as I hit that cold air, count 3 seconds, and I'm going to turn to you and say, oh, I'm cold. But you can't expect me to realize that will occur in the future. Number 2, never ask me to put on my shoes and socks. 2 problems. You gave me 2 steps, but you gave them to me in the wrong order. But even if you were to say, Judy, please put on your socks and shoes, if I've lost the ability to see a sequence, which is one of my rational thinking skills, you've embarrassed me. You put me on the spot. And as soon as we human beings get embarrassed or feel put on the spot or feel frustrated, then we're not good company. We begin to exhibit stress responses. Number 3, prioritization. The ability to recognize that an object or an idea is more important than another. That's another thing that we begin doing in our first year of life. But here's what it looks like. I'm experiencing dementia. My husband wants us to make it downtown in 1 hour for a medical appointment. I'm drinking coffee. Very clearly to him, it's important that I put down my coffee and get ready to go. But I cannot see why anything is more important than me drinking coffee. So those 3 cognitive skills, those are 3 skills that are part of our rational thinking skills. And we need to understand when our loved ones can't do those things anymore, we just embarrass and frustrate them. And that's why we're seeing so many stress responses, and companionship just goes out the window.
Oh, wow. I mean, some of that is hard to hear, if I'm being candid, just as a former caregiver for 2 people living with dementia, and 2 people that I would never want to embarrass, right? And I'm sure I did plenty without even knowing it, but just really interesting perspective.
Right.
Judy, I
but
think
you
we've
can't
lost
blame
your
yourself
audio.
as a caregiver, because these losses, Okay, there we go. Is that better? Can you hear me
Yeah,
now?
I feel bad for the audience because now they only have me to look at, but let's
Okay.
go with it. Um, so yeah, I love the way you summarize those three losses. And I guess the one thing my next question as a caregiver would be, or might be when I was back in the midst of it, would be, well, how can I, um, how can I remember that in the moment, right?
Yeah,
And this
yeah.
goes back to something that I've talked about oftentimes on these webinars and in other situations with family caregivers. And one of the really sort of important turning points for me in my caregiving experience was when I, thanks to friends and professionals, finally realized the need to reset my expectations. So
Oh,
I
yes.
think the knowledge that you're talking about here really uh, really would have helped me do that, right? It would have been incentive
Yes.
for me to do that. So
But
thank you.
Matt, let me just interject this. We as caregivers, we cannot blame ourselves for the stress and the distress. You know why? Is because this is a different relationship than any you've ever had before. You could have been
Yes.
married and a couple for 60 years, but now when your companion loses cognitive skills, everything becomes paradoxical.
Yes.
So, and this is why when I teach the Dawn method, I never let anybody learn faster than 8 weeks because you have to practice.
Hmm.
First comes
Hmm.
awareness, then you get to practice. But
Right. Right.
yeah,
I love that. And I'm seeing a couple comments come in. Thank you. I'm glad those three points from Judy were helpful. Please keep comments and questions if you have them coming. So Judy, in the interest of time, let's hop to um, the next change, which I think was increased confusion and sort of the loss of the ability to make sort of decisions. Now, is it sort of some of the same mechanics that you were just talking about at work there as well?
yeah, there's two things going on. So what's happening to me is, well, first caveat is this: we have to keep in mind that we as human beings, our dignity lies in our autonomy. If you take away my ability to make decisions, I will feel loss of dignity. And then I'm going to react according to personality. I'll either be really hurt and withdraw and isolate, or I'm going to be angry, belligerent, and obdurate. And I will refuse to do anything you say from this point forward. So what's happening, I'm becoming more confused. It's actually a 4-step process due to the cognitive skills that people lose, that we're losing. But if you would like me to be cooperative and easy to get along with and easy to lead towards making good decisions, especially when it's hygiene or safety, and I'm losing rational thinking skills, you need to offer me choices. And
Mm,
think about how we make choices. First skill I need to make a choice is my memory skills. I need to
mm,
be able to keep both options in my mind at the same time. And if I'm losing my memory skills, I very likely can only remember the last few words you said. The second skill I absolutely have to have, if I still have enough memory skills to hold that information in my mind, two different, and compare them, I need rational thinking in order to be able to compare the two choices. So dementia attacks autonomy and therefore dignity. But you love this person, you want to help them. How do we do it? And it depends how much of your memory skills you've lost, how much of your rational thinking skills you've lost. It's a
mhm.
journey, it's a path. But the primary tool that I teach to families and to caregivers, number one principle, first thing, when you wake up in the morning together, when you walk in the door if you're a caregiver, you are looking for ways to let me make a choice. And now
Mm,
you're going to help me. So you're not going to ask me, hey, Judy, what would you like for lunch? Because you're asking me to draw information to mind using memory skills. And then you're asking me to use rational thinking to choose. So instead, you're going to say, hey, Judy, would you like to have soup or a sandwich? If I've really lost my rational thinking skills and memory skills, sandwich is the last thing I'll hear. So make sure that you put the thing I'd like the most at the end of the sentence. I get to select it. All I have to do is say yes. There's a lot more to this topic. That's a huge topic, but that's a skill for us as caregivers.
Right. And there is, I'm sure, so much more to this topic, but part of the reason these sessions are 30 minutes and kind of quick hitting is and maybe it's my own personal bias, but it was the small little nuggets of information that I found just maybe most helpful, and probably because they were digestible, right? And I was so just tapped physically, mentally, that was all that I could handle. So there was a question, Judy, that I want to address, and maybe we could try your video one more time. I feel bad for the audience who have to look at me alone on camera. Okay, and perfect. Hi again. There's a question asked, will this session be recorded? Yes, it is being recorded. Anyone that's registered will get the replay, whether they attended today or weren't able to. So
good.
And keep those questions coming, comments coming, your experience. If you want to share them in the chat or the questions, please do. So the next change that I wanted to talk about was one that was particularly difficult for me, and I'm the host and it's all about me. So, but communication, the loss of communication and articulation skills for my mom and my father-in-law were just really, really difficult. And I'm not, they both at a certain point in their disease progression became nonverbal completely. And yes, that was an entire level of difficulty altogether. But just in general, it happened over time, and it was a really just painful source of frustration for me while caring for them. So can you help me understand, help us understand sort of what that's like for them?
Oh, it's horrible. I mean, you think about, like, if I've had a stroke and I'm unable to put my thoughts into sentences. If I'm experiencing dementia, it's a much slower process. But many people end up with word salad, and I believe one of your mom who would it's as if we keep knowledge of nouns and verbs and pronouns and prepositions, but we lose syntax. But for everybody, anybody, if I'm experiencing dementia, here's what's going to happen. That it will become as if I'm speaking a different language. I no longer speak English. And if you've ever talked with somebody, held a conversation when you didn't have a common language between you, this is what it's going to be like with dementia. And the best news to keep in mind is we human beings, we have two sets of thinking skills, and we only lose one to dementia. If I experience dementia, I'm going to lose rational thinking skills. With that goes vocabulary, partly due to memory loss, but also due to the loss of rational thinking, I'm going to lose oral language. Here's what my companions can do. My companions are not losing rational thinking, memory skills, or neither one of us are losing intuitive thinking skills, which is the primary set. And that means that if I'm experiencing dementia, I am becoming an expert at reading nonverbal communication, and I will do that until my last breath. I'm reading your intonation. I'm reading your facial expression. And there's the whole world of an entire class on mood management. But because I'm reading your nonverbal communication, And because I'm losing vocabulary, I need you to listen to me, not for factual information. Listen for my feelings. Because my feelings are also being communicated to you. You also have intuitive thinking skills, and so you also will be able to read from my intonation, my facial expression, my gestures, my posture, what it is I want or need. The other thing to keep in mind is people begin to associate words in strange ways. So you are going to hear some really, really creative use of language. One of my clients, after watching a film, he was fascinated by World War II. And after he watched a film about World War II, he turned to my caregiver and he said, that Hitler, he should be recycled. Now that's a creative use of language. That's not crazy. That's creative. Because when we recycle something, we take it apart, dismantle it, and repurpose it for something where it is more useful. Now that would have been lovely to have, be able to repurpose or to change his actions. That's creative use. The other thing that's going to happen to me is I'm going to begin to mix up words, and you're not going to be able to convince me that the new meaning I've attached to the word is not actually true. A client began to call mugs purses. We couldn't change that. We had to write it into the care plan. You'll hear somebody associate words with, because they sound the same, but they have very different meanings, the word that sounded the same will get substituted. But the key thing for you with communication, turn on your intuitive thinking skills and listen for the feeling behind what they are saying. That works even complete word salad.
Yeah. Or so 2 points on that, or look for the feeling.
Yes.
In a case like my family situation, when my father-in-law and mother-in-law were no longer speaking at all, they were still communicating. Just not with words. But the second thing that I wanted to call out there, or underscore rather, is your comment on facial expressions. And as you're saying it, I'm thinking about just how guilty, and I'm not beating myself up, don't get me wrong, but wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm fully guilty of that. So I'm thinking back to just the frustration that would show on my face, in my posture, all of that sort of stuff. So really appreciate that point.
Do we have a moment for facial expression? Right.
Yes, one quick moment.
Okay, if you walk into the room, I'm experiencing dementia, you're my daughter, you're my husband. You walk in, and on your face, when you walk in the door, the first expression on your face is worry. You probably were doing something that fully warranted an expression of worry. If I don't have rational thinking skills or memory skills, I will look at your face, I will see worry, and I'm going to internalize it in the manner my personality brings naturally.
Right. Yeah.
I'm immediately worried. And now you've got somebody to deal with, somebody who is lacking rational thinking and memory skills and is worried.
Right.
Or maybe I'm now angry at you because I think, well, what did I do now? Or maybe I'm afraid. Oh no, what's going to happen? Something terrible is about to happen. And you really don't want me in that. You want me to feel comfortable, safe. So you're always wanting to communicate an unconcerned smile.
Right. And I thankfully learned that better late than never is sort of the category that I found a way in, but I'm glad you mentioned it. So one question on language that I think is interesting. Is it also true, and this is from the audience, is it also true that a secondary language is lost sooner than someone's first language?
Absolutely, yes. Yep.
It is, okay. And then there is a comment about, so my father seems to be in denial about my mother's condition. What is the best way to get my father to accept that my mother has dementia? That's I feel for the question asker.
Common, yeah.
Yeah, very common. And I will email the question asker directly after today's
Yeah,
session.
yeah. That's an
And
hour to talk
yeah,
about.
probably more. And my
Yeah,
heart goes out for
yes.
certain.
So
So
common.
yeah. Okay. So the last change is sort of, what many people think of first when they think about dementia, which is the loss of memory. We've talked about it. We've talked about it sort of, memory has been woven throughout a lot of what you've been talking about, Judy. But what, can you shine a bit of a light on what that's like, especially the memory piece or the loss of memory piece. What is that like for our loved ones?
Okay, so what it's like is, try to imagine this, and it's hard because it's never happened to us ever before.
Mhm.
But you constantly find yourself marooned in an absolutely brand new, unfamiliar present. Our psychological perception of now, the present, is 3 seconds. If I lose my memory skills, now normal aging means it's harder for me to retrieve memory, and jogging my memory or giving me a clue is going to help. But dementia, when I'm experiencing dementia, that doesn't help. That actually embarrasses me and frustrates me because I'm not losing memory. I'm losing memory skill, the ability to remember. So if you try to give me a clue or jog my memory, what you're doing is essentially the same thing as if I had lost my vision and you would say, oh, come on, Judy, I'm pointing, just look where I'm pointing. It
Right.
makes no sense to do it. I've lost the ability. So I am living marooned in the present.
Mhm.
I don't have the ability to access any information from anything that's gone before. So if you and I have just gotten home from breakfast at our favorite coffee shop, I
Mhm.
didn't. You did, but I didn't.
Right.
So you don't want to say to me, oh, come on, Judy, we were just there. You had an omelet. I had the pancakes. That would work if I was aging and was
Mhm.
beginning to have slower recall. But when I'm experiencing dementia, I need you to say, oh, Judy, that was fun. We just went downtown and we had breakfast at Bloom and you had omelets and you had the omelet with the salmon and me, I had those pancakes. What were they called? And you're going to tell me the story of the good time we had in the past because only
Right.
you can access it. So
I
this is,
love the
yeah,
Yeah, I love the distinction between memory and memory skills that you make. I hadn't thought about it that way, and it's it's easier for me to grasp here. We have just a minute left, Judy. There are a couple of so actually one question: does this relate to pictures of family as well?
oh
Right, the
yeah.
memory piece.
Yeah, be really careful with that. So
Yeah.
and it's hard to give you guys sound bites, but you show me a picture. It's my favorite picture of my grandkids. Jason and John. Jason's 7, John's 13. There's mom, Michelle's standing there. Everybody's smiling on a mountain overlooking a lake. I took that picture. I love that picture. I love Jason, John, and Michelle. But I'm losing my memory skills. So pretty soon, you can help me by showing me that picture every day and telling me the story of the picture.
Mm-hmm.
That will help me recall for longer.
Mm.
And our memories that were implanted with emotion are more retrievable for longer.
Mm-hmm.
So you can, but once I begin to forget, you take over. You become my memory keeper. So
Mm-hmm.
you have been listening to me repeating stories and you've been paying attention. Now you know what I love, the pictures that are important to me, the memories, the stories that are important to me. And you're
Mm-hmm.
watching me lose contact with the past, but you've been memorizing. And so
Mm-hmm.
you are now my memory keeper. And
Mm-hmm.
instead of showing me a picture and saying, come on, these are your own grandchildren. That's your daughter. You know their names. Come on, Judy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do that. We're the memory keeper now. And now for me, what you're doing is you're saying, oh, look, Judy, look at this. There's Jason and John. What, I wonder, he must have been 7. And, you know, John, look at him. He's just becoming a teenager. And oh my, doesn't Michelle look beautiful? Our daughter is a lovely woman. And you tell me who I love, who loves me, and tell me the good stories of my life over and over. Because as I walk the dementia path, just like anybody walking towards the last chapter of life, I need to know those 3 things: who I am, who you are, and you just introduce yourself every time, because I can't access the past, but you tell me who I love, who loves me, and you tell me those stories that I told over and over again, because those are the stories that told me I lived a good life. So my companions become my memory keeper. One of my clients used to tell me I was her portable brain, and the 2 of us thoroughly enjoyed that.
Yeah, you're making me smile. I was talking about the pictures, and thank you, audience member who asked the question. Because now that, and my caregiving has recently ended, but I look back on many of my most frequent happy memories of the last few years with my mom are conversations around pictures. And we're actually doing kind of what you're describing, Judy, almost looking at the pictures, yes, but telling the story of the pictures. And, you know, every once in a while, you know, it was clear that my mom would have it and my father-in-law would be enjoying themselves, but every once in a while they'd really get, you know, find one story to be a hoot. And it was just a really, I think I look back on those actions now as a gift, and here you are sort of reinforcing the importance of us doing those sorts of things, or how helpful they can be. So really appreciate that. We are at time. We're 3 minutes over, actually. So there are a number of questions in here that we didn't get to. As I mentioned earlier, I will follow up directly on those questions with the askers of those questions. Judy, I can't thank you enough for joining us. What parting thoughts would you leave the audience today?
Loving somebody who's experiencing dementia or experiencing it yourself is a brand new world. It changes all the rules of relationships. So educate yourself, learn about strength-based dementia care. That's really the only way you can lower your own stress and you can improve the quality of life for the person you love. We really have to understand what our skills are, which ones we keep, because we do not lose them all. And it's not random. Nobody becomes crazy. There's a pattern. So I really encourage people to Google strength-based care or come to the Dawn Method, and we've got lots of free resources.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Judy. Really appreciate it. Audience, hope everybody, hope you found this helpful. Thank you for joining us. Next month's session, we'll be talking about, I'll be joined again by John Shaw of the Caregiver Action Network. We'll be talking about knowing our rights as caregivers, a topic that I find particularly interesting and would have found really, really helpful at the beginning of my caregiving journey. So hope you can join us then. It's August 26th at 12 p.m. Eastern. Judy, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you for inviting me.